Hi guys, it's Cindy Leach, your Polymer Clay tutor, and today's PCT mini toot. I'm going to show you how to make a Zinnia flower cane from polymer clay. Now that is this little cane here. Now I was going to show you how to make a chrysanthemum cane, but everybody does that. It's a very common cane. So I decided to take the same ideas that are in the chrysanthemum cane and adapt them and tweak them and add a few cool new things to them and kick them up a notch. So I ended up with this Zinnia flower. Now, I've got a few examples here of some components, jewelry components that I've made using the cane. I've got a pendant here. I've got a few of them here, where I've taken slices of the cane and added it to a pearly background sheet. In fact, the color was made by just mixing up the scraps from the cane. So it ends up in a very pretty kind of sunset pearly color. And I layered it onto like thin slices of the cane onto the pearl clay, and then rolled it out, baked it, or cut it out, baked it, and then added a layer of UV resin. And I think it looks real pretty. It has a very summery kind of look to it. I've done these kind of in sets. Also made a pair of earrings here using the same technique from the same sheet. And then I added a little bit of gemstone chips at the top of the ear wires. All right, so this is a neat cane to do. If you've done the chrysanthemum cane before, you'll find this very similar, only just a few more steps to it. But it's very simple. And the colors that I'm going to be using are Primo Fuchsia, Primo Orange, Primo Cadmium Yellow. And for an accent color and also to shift the blend a little bit, we're going to be using some 18 karat gold Primo accents. Now you don't need a lot of clay. These bars are split into 4 sections, so here's 2 sections here. I'm just using a half of a section of each of the colors, the fuchsia, orange, and yellow, and then I'm going to use a full section of the gold. You won't end up using all of the gold, but it's easier to work with if you use a full section. All right, so the whole cane starts off with making a teardrop blend. Now I've got a couple of videos on making teardrop blends, so I mean, even though I will do it, you'll want to watch those videos if you've never done one before, because it has lots of good tips in it. Anyways, so what I've done is I've taken my half section of fuchsia, orange, and yellow and rolled them into a ball and shaped them into a teardrop and then flattened them out a bit. This I'm going to be blending, and you'll want to watch that video. There's 2 kinds of ways of doing it. You can use a pasta machine or without a pasta machine, so you can do it either way. Then I'm going to be using some of the 18 karat gold clay as an accent color. But because these colors are really bright, I'd like to tone them down just a little bit and make them a little less garish, if you want to call it that. So what I'm going to do is do a shift blend, which I have a video on as well. But I'm just going to blend or shift this blend a little bit by adding a bit of gold to it. So this sheet has been rolled out. Okay, so what was this at? About 4 playing cards thick. And I'm just going to take a section of it and add it to my blend before I start blending it. As you can see, it's super precise. Doesn't really matter. I'm just going to be adding a little bit of gold to all of these colors as I blend it, and it will warm them up and it'll make it match the gold that I'm going to be using as an accent color. Then I'm going to be running it through my pasta machine. You can do this by hand as well. But here, actually, let me just flatten this out a little bit more. I don't want to make my machine work too hard. And it's been sitting for a minute. If it's warmer, it helps. Okay, there we go. And I'm going to run it through my pasta machine here and start doing a blend. So I'm just going to fold it up and run it through. I'm going to control the width a little bit here with my fingers. and keep running through. Now, I don't want to do a complete blend. I want to do more of an arty blend, kind of a streaky blend. So I'm going to blend it only part way. So I'm going to keep going until it looks a little nicer than this, but it isn't perfect. So let's see, a couple more times. And this way it just has a little more streaks to it. It makes the cane slightly more interesting. If you continued to blend it all the way and make a perfect blend, then that would be fine too. But it doesn't matter that much. Okay, so we're getting there. Just one or two more folds. Also don't want this to get too wide, so I'm going to keep my fingers to the side. See, isn't this looking cool? Okay, so we're just about there. All right, so that looks pretty good to me. It's nice and streaky. It looks good. Now, I want the direction to change a bit because I want the strip to go long ways. So I'm going to fold it in half, but this time, instead of running it through the pasta machine this way, like you do when you're blending, I'm going to run it the one time this way. So it's going to make it a little bit longer and skinnier and have the color go from end to end. That. Now I'm going to take this blend and I'm going to double it up. So I'm just going to fold it in half. Now that was at the thickest setting of my pasta machine, which is like 8 playing cards thick. So now we've got a blend that goes from pink to orange to yellow that is double that. So it's 16 playing cards thick. I want to take this strip now and I want to add a layer of gold to the top, but I don't want it to be as thick as this. So I'm going to take this clay here and I'm going to run it through the pasta machine, but I want it to be only half as thick. So if I run it through at the thickest setting on my pasta machine, this is going to be 8 playing cards thick. That should be just about right. All right, so that'll be good. I'll stretch it out just a tiny bit just to get it to go. This isn't precise either. It's not that big of a deal if it's not perfect. There we go. Just stretch it out so it fits. I wouldn't worry about this crackly edge or anything. And so what we've got here is a layer of gold and a thicker layer of a rainbow kind of blend. Not a full rainbow, just the pretty colors. Okay, so the next thing that we're going to need is some sort of stiff, dull, straight edge. I'm going to use an old Air Miles card, but you could use a gift card, a fairly thin ruler, something like that. And what we're going to do is we're going to take this and we're going to push it through the stack right down to the bottom and keep going like this. So what this does is because it's dull, it kind of pushes that gold layer down into the other layers and it kind of feathers them. So you can do some of them wide, some of them skinnier, closer together. This is going to give a kind of a ruffled petal look to the edge of your petal when we roll this up into like a jelly roll. Now the typical chrysanthemum cane, that's a hard word for me to say, does not have this step in it, nor does it have a blend. It usually just has stacked layers of color. But this is going to make it just a little bit more interesting. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to take this row. Now, it's all kind of cut apart, so if we try to play with it too much at this point, it's going to fall apart. So we want to make sure that we take a brayer or a roller or something like that, and we push these all back together again so that they're stuck together into a nice layer. I need to fix my roller so it's not so squeaky. All right. Then what we're going to do is run this through the pasta machine one more time just to kind of meld those layers together and make sure that they're all the same thickness. So we're just going to run it through at the thickest setting, 8 playing cards thick, starting at one end, and just be careful not to let it break apart. If it does break apart, we can kind of stick it back together. It's not the end of the world. Okay, so just carefully run it through. Like that. Doesn't it look so cool already? Even just that looks cool. All right, so now what we're going to do is we're going to flip it over, and we're going to take this yellow end here, and we're going to take a little snake of the gold. I forgot to warm this up here. So let me just warm that up. We just need a little snake for the center so that the center doesn't look all yellow. You could probably put any of the colors. Maybe the pink would look nice too, but the gold will look good. And I'm just going to put a little snake down the center here before we start rolling it up. Just like that, maybe a little smaller. And then, now don't worry about all these sort of cracked edges. That'll all work itself in as we start to put this cane together. So I'm just going to start rolling this up nice and tight, avoiding any kind of air pockets. And if it wants to fall apart, don't let it. Just keep rolling it up. So we're just going to roll it up from the yellow end with the gold on the outside. You can tuck the ends in. Now, as you can see, this is quite a relaxed looking cane, but it ends up looking super frilly and cute, just like a zinnia flower. All right, let's get this rolled up. Now, you're probably thinking this is some sort of hot mess, but don't worry about it. It's all going to come together. So you can see it's starting to come together here. Now, let's just warm it up. Now, if you had very, very stiff clay, it could be trickier to do. You'd want to use a little bit fresher clay so that the clay's soft enough and will stick together nicely. All right, so now what we have is, if I was to cut it open, you'd see the color going in spirals and kind of ripples. So what we need to do now is put the petals in. So we're going to take the card again, and we're going to press down through all the layers. Maybe this side would be easier to see from. We want to go right down into the center. So we're going to press down through the sides and right to the center on both sides. Then close it up and go a quarter turn. Go right down to the center. Make sure you're getting down to the center. Each time a quarter turn, we'll go right down to the center. Like that. Oops, it didn't go quite to the center. That's okay. We'll get to the center eventually here. Down to the center. Now, if it starts to come apart, push it all back together. Now, we're going to now go in the areas. So we went here, 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 and here. We're going to go in between those. All right, so press down to the center, like that. This is making the petals. This is pushing all of those colors down into the petals. This is part of the technique that they do in the Chrysanthemum Cane. Now, some people like to use translucents. I tried this technique with translucents. It didn't work very well. It was too much detail. So the more times I go around, the more petals I'm going to get. And with if you see this cane here, you can see I have lots and lots of petals. It just really makes it look more delicate. So make sure that you're compacting it together, bringing it together. You can squash it back down. It's pretty forgiving. And you can just manipulate, make sure it's all holding together. And then you can see the lines kind of on the side here. Just press in between those ones again. And keep going as many times as you want until you feel like you have a really nice frilly flower. Now, it would be tempting to go right next to each other, but then it gets very distorted and twisted. So try to go at least, you know, every quarter turn or so, like that. Okay, so I think that's good enough. I could probably go a little bit further, but you know, we don't have all day. So I'm just going to make sure that this is in a state where it's not going to fall apart on me, and we'll cut it in half, and I'll show you what it looks like on the inside and what I like to do with it. So I'm going to cut, actually I won't cut it in half, I'll cut it in a third so that I can keep different sizes of it. So I'm going to cut a third. Isn't that so cool? Now, I'm going to take, it looks, rather than having these edges all rounded, it looks much better when you slice it if you go back and press those edges in. In fact, you can even add extra ones before you cut it. And every time you reduce it and you lose those frilly edges, just go back and push some new ones in. It will really make it look great when you're layering it, the slices on to your piece. Isn't that so cool? I love polymer clay, and I love cutting open a new fresh cane. All right, so you can take this section here and reduce it, make it smaller so you have a bunch of different sizes, and you just reduce it. I have videos on reducing. And as you can see, when you start watching the videos in our channel, you'll see that a lot of the videos play off of each other. One technique can be used in a bunch of different ways, and you continue to learn the different techniques, and you put them all together, and you end up with a bunch of different really cool projects. So I'm going to take a third of that off, and then you can reduce it further and further, and you end up with all these different sized flowers. And just before you go to take the slices off, you go back in and you cut, or you pinch in those little frilly edges. Make them kind of random, some close, some far away, like that. Now, like I said, I took some of the scrap ends. For example, here, there'll be a bit of scrap that doesn't turn out that great. If you just blend those up, because you've got all these pretty pinks and yellows and golds in there, it'll make a really lovely kind of sunset pearl kind of color. Though Primo's color of sunset pearl is more pink, but this is kind of an orangey pearl color. Then you can just take that as a background sheet and add slices of your cane. I'm just going to take a few slices. I should use my Lucy clay slicer, but I'll just take a few by hand. You lay them on there. So you take a few slices, and even partial slices, if you don't cut it perfectly, you can lay them like this, next to each other. Take some of other colors, or not other colors, other sizes, like that. Maybe grab one of these. And then you can take all of these different layers together, flatten them out, run them through your pasta machine again. I would do lots more. I'd fill up the whole sheet. Run them through like that, and it flattens the whole surface right out. You turn it a little bit each time you run it through so that you're not stretching the clay in one direction. And see how pretty that is? You can cut this out. You can make earrings and pendants and bracelets and all kinds of very cool projects. So I hope you enjoyed this project. It's a beautiful zinnia flower cane for you to make, and you could try it in other colors. Look up on Google what different zinnia flowers look like and see if you can come up with the combination of your own. All right, so if you like this video, do let us know. If you've got a technique that you would like to learn and you haven't seen it in the other videos that we have, or there's a book you want me to review, a product you want me to test, anything to do with polymer clay, make sure to leave your suggestions in the comment section below. All right, So we'll see you next time, and bye for now.